Scott and Amy, thank you so much for joining me at Studio 360 at the refreshed RESi360. I understand this is your first time ever attending Resi. How are you finding it?
Yeah, great. I think it's given us some really good insights from everyone from the finance, the start projects, all the way through the developers and some of the designers that we would deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's nice to get everyone's perspective.
And how are you finding it, Scott?
Yeah, I think, as Amy said, it's actually very insightful, hearing from all sorts of areas of the sector. Whereas sometimes sometimes as a manufacturer, sometimes narrow-minded in terms of what we do. Actually hearing the challenge that other people have as well is actually always what's going to take away from this.
And you mentioned that you get to see the whole life cycle of a development and understand a little bit about the Resi. You guys, obviously at EGGER, come in towards the end of a project. Can you give everyone, for people who will be watching this video, a little bit of an understanding about what EGGER do and where you fit within the residential value chain?
Yeah, so we're a decorative panel supplier. We have manufacturing plants here in the UK and worldwide, and traditionally we supply into the kitchen, bedroom, bathroom market. So I guess for the developers here, we are at the very end of their project and supplying that fitted furniture into their projects. But I guess understanding at the end of their budgets where their pressures might be, or where they're trying to get their scheme to fit into certain bandings for environmental values and things like that. That's where we come in and try and find the product that's good for them.
And do you find that you get so I was speaking to an interiors company yesterday, and they were saying that actually by the time that you're looking at sort of interiors and furniture, that's when people have typically overshot budget, so there's a pressure to bring down capex. So a lot of the time there's sometimes a bit of a disconnect where people are talking about one quality, but actually when it comes to the end, they're looking at ultimately what's cheap. Is that something that you guys notice? Is it a problem that you face?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, one of our big topics at the minute is value engineering, and added value as well. So that's where you make the best use of the product, but without actually kind of taking away from that design intent. But actually, the cost aspect isn't kind of getting affected, and that's also within tying into sustainability, which we've also seen a massive drive towards as well. Just that by having a cost-effective, sustainable product gives designers, developers a solution which doesn't impact their budget at all.
And the other topic that's obviously very big, and we've heard a lot of people speak about it in this is sustainability, not just from a carbon perspective, but also from a biodiversity perspective. Are you being increasingly asked as a supplier how sustainable your products are? What is their environmental impact and footprint?
Yeah,
all the time. It's becoming more regular. We noticed it massively over the last 18 months, probably more so. It's the only thing that we see is we've heard sustainability a lot yesterday and today. It's how much is that going to go into the interior forefront in terms of when you're looking at the kitchens, the materials used for the kitchens or the bathrooms or the doors. Is that really a key topic yet for developers, where we talk about obviously kind of energy ratings and that? It's actually when the materials, is that going to become more of a forefront in the future? We think so, but we've kind of got all that already in the background, so when that does happen, all that's ready for them to use.
I think it was interesting in the roundtable discussion yesterday, we were talking about sustainability, and whilst everyone's trying to fit the criteria for their build using the materials that will achieve that, it's actually the end consumer's drive to be sustainable as well, where our product ties in slightly more. So they may not know that their building fits a wellness standard or BREEAM, but actually they want to know that the product that they're using in their kitchen that they see at the end of the build is a sustainable product that has recycled content, can be recycled, and has that full life cycle use potentially. So it was interesting to hear that from the developer side, where they have pressures and price concerns fitting the criteria, but actually to sell the end product, the consumers are concerned with other things in the build.
And then the other big issue, not necessarily discussed at Resi here today, but affecting all residential buildings is fire safety. There's obviously post-Grenfell been a lot of focus on sort of the exteriors. Are you finding that actually a lot of building owners and investors, developers, contractors are talking to you also about the fire safety of the internal products as well?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at like some of the fitted furniture, that hasn't been impacted. It's more when we look at the panelling in corridors or escape routes, where kind of we offer solutions for those as well. So it's not just having a product for certain areas. We do have products which we can be used for those areas.
And I assume there's always been questions about fire safety, but has there been heightened questions post Grenfell? Would you say?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it created almost a fear, didn't it? To
Yeah.
what products and that need for knowledge about what you were specifying increased quite suddenly and rapidly, and the testing and the certificates available had to be readily available for all applications.
And what would you say is fire safety, environmental sustainability in all its forms? What do you think is the next thing on the horizon that suppliers as yourself are having to consider? We actually, one of my clients is a US architecture firm, and they talk a lot about toxic materials. Is that something that you think people are going to be alive to in the UK?
I think we see the pressures in the States from our colleagues over there. We know the pressures that they come under already with toxic content. I think as a product we're aware of what goes into it, but I think the sustainability element is evolving. People understanding the end of a product and the life cycle, like we said before, is it's not just about what's in their product, it's what happens to it at the end of it, and how is that reused. Fast fashion becomes a topic, so everything in the consumer life feeds into then the home life. So we kind of see that as a demand going forward and the evolving. So
there's a heightened demand for not necessarily using recycled products within the buildings, but certainly for when they've passed their shelf
afterlife.
their afterlife, but that they use something and not just thrown in the skip.
To make sure, and like I say, we have our own recycling company, so I think for developers, we can put a skip outside of a development. If they're ripping out and retrofitting, they can put old kitchens in, and they know that it's going back into the product. So we have 40% recycled content in the new product, and generally it's all recycled in a roundabout way. So it's harnessing that demand and making sure it's met.
Okay, well, thank you both. Really appreciate you joining me. I know that you were keen to see the chat at 11:40, so I'll let you go. Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.